Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us at Tarragon on this really gorgeous Sunday. I think it's such a blessing to be in this space with you all, and also I feel I'm so lucky to get to talk to two incredible artists and humans. They are both incredibly accomplished international artists, so I printed out both their program and their bio to be able to give you a full picture of all the incredible things they do, and promise to not make it cringy for the artists themselves.
Thank you.
But it is my honor to introduce to you Kevin Matthew Wong. He's someone that I greatly adore, admire, and respect. I've known Kevin for 8-9 years now, and he's been an incredible touring artist. He's a producer, he's a theater creator, and a video artist. He's the director of producing at Why Not Theatre, the creator of the Dora award-winning series, Benevolence, which you're here for. And of that, there's a Benevolence verse, a multiverse of Benevolence that we're going to talk a little bit about today. He's a Hakka Chinese-Canadian artist and producer working across theater, film, and installation. He's interested in creating work about guesthood and cultural preservation. And as the director of producing, you may have seen the Mahabharata at Canadian stage. It's been touring around the world. And so Kevin has a giant impact and hand in the successes and life of that show. He's collaborated on diverse sets of projects and companies in Canada, the UK, Spain, Germany, Australia, Korea, and the United States. And he's also the inaugural Ginny Stoke Creative Fellow, researching how legacy institutions can authentically collaborate with BIPOC artists and companies. And then to his right is Dramaturg of Benevolence, Yizhou Zhang, a PhD candidate at the University of Toronto's Centre for Drama, Theatre and Performance Studies, with a BA in Classical Studies and Comparative Literature from King's College London in UK. Her research for me was fascinating. I had so much fun Googling down a rabbit hole of what she researches. She's interested in the aesthetics, epistemology, and politics of embodiment and movement, especially in the roles they play in the histories of modernism, capitalism, and globalization, which for me related to some parts of Feast. If any of you have seen Feast in our other space, I feel like that research touches upon it as well. And very, very interestingly, for this, I think we're going to have a lot of meat talking about this. As an artist, Yizhou likes to facilitate intercultural collaborations and to combine puppetry, animation, documentary theater, and literary adaptations. And so, welcome both, and welcome to you all.
Welcome, everybody.
One thing I wanted to acknowledge is that Kevin is also the performer, as you know, in this show. So at the half hour, we're going to make sure that Kevin gets enough of a break to prepare for the show you're about to see today. So I'm going to make sure we get a lot of great questions, make sure we get some questions from you for Kevin, and then we'll continue on for the next hour with Yizhou. But we'll chat together now. I wanted to start off of sort of the impetus of this whole project. In an interview that you did with Intermission magazine around the Chemical Valley project, another very successful touring production that Kevin spearheaded with Broadleaf Theatre, you spoke about how you realized sort of a gap in your cultural knowledge of your own heritage from working on that. And so I wanted to ask you about the origin story and around that experience of working on the Chemical Valley project that brought you to Benevolence.
Sure. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. It's so great to see you. I feel it's so bizarre to create a piece of art and then have people actually come see it. It's such a privilege. So thank you so much for spending time with us today. So I find that each piece that I've created kind of dovetails into the next one. And so I created a piece with these two incredible water protectors and land defenders named Vanessa and BZ Gray. And they're fighting for their community's safety. They're surrounded by 40% of Canada's petrochemical industry. Yeah, and that means that the cancer incidence rates, the asthma rates in the community are just sky high. And they've taken on the torch from their elders, which is maybe a nice connection to Benevolence. And during that process, it's also a solo show in which I, as a Hakka Chinese man, I'm trying to talk to people about environmental racism in Canada, particularly as it happens to Indigenous folks. And midway through making that show, I thought, who am I as some Chinese guy to be talking about, Indigenous sovereignty? And so I spoke with Dr. Jill Carter, who's an Anishinaabe Ashkenazi professor at U of T in the theater department. And I was really looking for either a cease and desist or a rubber stamp to do it or not do it. And instead of saying, yes, Kevin, go ahead, or no, you're canceled, Dr. Carter asked me a question, and the question was, where's your family from? And that's a question that I think a lot of people recoil at. We often get it in the context of, with an undertone of you don't belong, or you haven't been here long enough. But Dr. Carter's question was really important because what she was saying was, the only way that you can meet us story to story is to bring your own. So, and that got me thinking, my bad answer that day was, they're from Hong Kong, which is not the full story. That was only, I see the Hakka journey as like throwing a stone across a lake. And the stone keeps skipping and you don't know where it's gonna stop. And Hong Kong for my family was just one of those stone skips. I had to find out where the stone came from on shore. And so that journey is actually what this story is about. And the answers aren't crystal clear. I hope that's not too much of a spoiler. But that journey of tracing back is something that brings me a sense of greater fullness in my day-to-day. And if I hadn't tried to do that work in solidarity with other folks, I wouldn't have been provoked to go on this journey today.
That's beautiful, and such wise words to share from Dr. Jill Carter. Thank you, Dr. Carter.
Yeah.
And similarly, Yizhou, how has heritage played a part in your research or played a part in the art that you make? And then specifically, how did your journey of your story collide with the journey of Kevin's story?
I see. Okay, I'll try not to go too far because it's actually something that is constantly on my mind. I'm not, Kevin is second generation immigrant. I'm still temporary resident in Canada. But throughout my life, I would say my education has been one that is one that's actually shared by a lot of international students in Canada. It's one always on the move, one that is across from the third world into the first world, from the east into the west. And for me, I think there is always this tension between running away, and there is a reason for running away, for escaping, for not looking back, but also this need to also know who I am and that my history is always part of myself. What I am running away from is always part of myself. And it actually could become a resource, a tool to help me in a foreign place, in a strange place. Yeah, so I have to say that I was probably the first audience of the first iteration of this project. It was first showcased at U of T's alumni showcase during COVID as a filmed digital performance. And I will not spoil like which scene I was, but at that time the production, the performance was more abstract. I find it more impersonal. It is more spiritual and symbolic. But over time, I think and I think this is what I find is one of the true flesh and blood of this production, is that throughout the time, Kevin connected with his community. Like this drive, the Dr. Jill Carter's question drove Kevin to connect with his community, with people in his community. And I think that's really the flesh and the blood of the production. And so the production become more and more concrete, and until the one that we see today. I would say it's not exactly hesitation, but yeah, maybe it's a little bit of a distance, because at first I thought that when I first see the final version of the script, I thought, oh, this really is, rather than a drama about Hakka history, about the Hakka people, it's really about how Kevin, a Hakka Chinese second generation Canadian immigrant in Canada, how he receives this gift, what actually more complex than gift, how he receives information about his past and history and makes sense of his present. But because I'm not an immigrant yet, so at first when I saw the script, I actually felt a little bit distant. I'm like, am I able to connect with this play? When I cannot fully identify with the protagonist, who is a second-generation immigrant, while I'm still, I don't really see, like, my connection with my heritage. It's not distanced by generation and by sea, or by the ocean, by travel as much. But I have to say, throughout the performance, observing the rehearsals, the story really came alive to me, and I realized, I will get into this later, but I do see that in the framework of guesthood, we can all find a place in this framework, and I did too. And to me, that is the most powerful thing about this performance, is that it transcends the identity, the definitions of identity as we know it. So that someone like me, who is a temporary resident, or someone who is not a Chinese immigrant, could also find a place in this production.
Thank you. And thank you so much for sort of mentioning that first iteration of watching it, the digital version of it. I was going to segue that into sort of talking about how in the journey of exploring your heritage, there's also been a journey for the Benevolence sort of projects, series of projects. Last summer, it was Benevolence Hall at the Toronto
Toronto History Museums.
Museums. Thank you so much. And also, it was made into a documentary a while back. And even before this stage production, it was at our Greenhouse Festival 2 winters ago. And so it's been an iterative process for Benevolence. And so I wanted to ask, how did each of these markers and containers of Benevolence distinguish themselves, or what did you learn from each to now accumulate towards this production?
Well, I can also say there are so many of them because theater takes a long time to make. So I had this initial idea for this play, and I really wanted to get it made. And theater is usually made on a fast timeline in 3 years, maybe. So, and we probably did this in like 3.5, which is not bad. But in all the, there's a lot of fallow time as a theater artist. And I just thought, I gotta keep digging, there's more to do. So the first thing was that there was this amazing opportunity. I have 2 wonderful friends from colleagues in the film world. Real Asian has this amazing program called Unsung Voices, and they're looking for people to apply right now. It's for filmmakers 30 and under, I believe, to create a first film, or have support to create a short film that actually gets screened at a major festival. So that was huge. And there's a specific place that's mentioned that I won't say right now in the play. And when I learned about that place, it was the last week that I could apply for that program. And I was aging out of the program too. So I thought, it's now or never, like I had this conviction that I needed to do something to support the place that you'll find out about in the play. And there was this opportunity, and I thought, well, I've just got to try. And I think that's been the spirit of all of this. In the Greenhouse, I didn't know if I was going to get in, but I thought, I just got to try, because I believe this story is for somebody out there. And then one thing that I realized neither the film or the theater could do was give the audience the agency of time. And so I thought, what's another way that I could explore this concept of guesthood and hosting, where the audience actually gets to choose how much they interact with a piece or not. So I thought museums were so interesting. So, and again, I had this 2 days before the deadline, I found out about this initiative from the Toronto History Museums to animate historical places. And one of the places that was open was the Market Gallery at St. Lawrence Market, which was Toronto's first city hall. And now the second floor is an art gallery. And so I got to create a large-scale video installation, which was a meditation on legacy, generations, inheritance. And it was a 25-foot long video installation with a moon gate cut out, a round door that you could walk in and out of. That was kind of in reference to Chinese history, but also the spirit of being nomadic. Hakka people are, you'll learn this in the show, but we're known as China's nomadic people. We have migrated a lot. And the material of the installation was Tyvek, which is used to wrap homes. So there was also, what's so fun in museums is your mind is turned on in a different way, that materiality matters in a much more specific way. Like in the theater, yes, I think you'll get a intangible sense. Am I using that right, Yizhou? A feeling of what the materiality is. In a museum, it's told to you, And so I think that conceptual thing I thought was so fun for people to think about homes. And then the other thing was just with this whole piece, it's about empathy with stories that you don't know about, People that, one thing that has underlined all of these projects was my conviction that there are these amazing stories in plain view to us, but unless we put the right lenses on, we'll never be able to see them. And so what you're seeing, I hope, in the story of Benevolence, the play, is a young person who is just trying on these different lenses until one clicks. And what happens when that clicks and everything changes, So, yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely, thank you. And what I love is that in the piece, light spoiler, but not really, the projection design is so beautiful and evocative, and also uses some real live footage and some from also the documentary.
Totally.
And so it feels like all the iterations are in place and also steps towards what you're about to see today. And thank you for bringing up the thought of materiality, because it's actually perfect. With your research, I was so curious around how sort of materials, how docu-fiction theater, as I read in one of your interviews, how that plays a role in how you dramaturged in Benevolence.
Okay, big question. So docu-fiction, it's my practice of documentary theater. I call it docu-fiction because it combines documentary theater with fictional narratives, with literary adaptations. So it's very much, I find that here it seems to, how people understand the reality and non-reality seems to be a very rigid binary, it's a binary categorization but if you look at it, you will realize that no, it's actually very complex, and they are all intertwined. Is the news real, or is the story fake? So I want to disturb this kind of binary opposition, and because when the this binary categorization is there, you will just automatically assume that this genre is real, that genre is fake, this story is real, that story is fake. But we thought this, but when this binary categorization is disturbed, then you as an audience and as a reader, you have to decide for yourself, what does this story mean to me? How do I make use of this story? Do I judge it to be real or unreal, or somewhere in between? So, but I don't know how this map onto Kevin's Benevolence though, because I would say it's. Would you call it documentary theater? I first want to ask.
I call this an autofiction piece. It's what's super fun. So I just want to say, my superheroes are in the corner. So a lot of folks from my community are here, right over here, and they're an amalgam. A spoil. Well, you've seen some of it already. But one of the characters in the piece is an amalgamation of four of the people in this corner, and so there's a level of reality to that in this kind of stories and even some of the dialogue. Betty and I had a conversation in a hallway. I was really stressed out about whether I should be doing this project that you'll learn about during the show. And Betty and I were standing outside, and one of the lines that I say in the show is, the character that you'll meet says, "Kevin, I don't know if we'll be here in a few years." I don't know if you remember that conversation, but Betty said it completely sincerely. In the play, it's sort of read as, she's a little bit manipulating Kevin to do this thing. But we were just standing there looking at these photos of the association's history, and Betty was saying, the full-time staff are in their 70s and 80s. We're our age. I don't know if we'll be here in a few years. And that was one of the inciting moments from my personal journey. I had no idea this was going to be a theater piece. Right. We were creating a whole different thing. But that penny dropping for me was a huge inciting moment. So it's kind of amazing that you're here today. So there's elements of reality that inspired the piece, and then there's elements for which there's a fight scene that happens late in the play for which the antagonizing character is loosely based on something that happened, but mostly based on my own fears, if that makes sense. So in that way, it's a fun interplay. You see actual video from reality, and then but the truth is somewhere in between, and what is true, what is untrue.
Exactly. And so I think, I agree. It's a story about you finding truth. And we accompany you as audiences. We accompany you on that journey of seeking truth. I always think that the theater that I find most powerful is a theater that is an event. Like an event is happening in front of you right here, right now. And I think that's what you're going to witness soon, is that Kevin will be that event. Like you will witness his actions and
I'll
his
try my
journey
best.
and this
It's a Sunday matinee, everybody.
eventness. So, sorry, I'm not sure if this is what you are
It's
asking.
perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Yizhou. And it actually ties into something that you shared from when you were working on the tin drum at University of Toronto. You wrote something down in this interview that I wanted to read to everyone because it spoke exactly to truth and reality and representations of truth so beautifully. There's a pressure for artists to lay claim over truth or reality in order to prove their legitimacy. We do not claim that we represent reality. We try to process our experiences and observations of the real world into a collection of theatrical experiences where multiple levels of reality and voices are at play. And it spoke to me to sort of condense sort of what you just spoke about in that it's an autofiction. There is the truth of what you're going to see as a documentary, and then also the parts that you represent your truth through fiction.
Yeah.
And that's such a powerful thing about theater. So thank you both for sharing that.
I just want to add that, just on that, you will see that in the design as well, the set design and the props. It will not be something that your mind first think about when you think about a Chinese play, a play about Chinese culture, a play about Hakka culture. Yeah, so no spoilers, but.
Absolutely. I wanted to be conscious of time for Kevin's preparation.
Sure.
And so in one of the interviews that you spoke about, again, from Chemical Valley Project, leading into Benevolence, was that it was a piece that for you really wanted to spur direct action. And it was a piece that came out of your own need for direct action when you heard those stories. And from what you just shared about Benevolence, the deadlines for Real Asian Festival and all the different iterations of it, it always seems to me that you practice direct action into now's the time. And so I wanted to ask you, what is the wish you have of direct action for our audiences today?
Yeah, I think the title kind of says a lot. I think benevolence is something that is, a lot of us may feel that is in short supply today, whether it's because, not only because we spend a lot of time on the internet, but, we have fences around our homes. We have, driveways that create distance. We have X, Y, Z, on and on and on. Political walls go up. Sorry, I'll speak louder. Oh, my bad. Sorry, I was getting pensive, everybody. I'm sorry. My bad. So we have all these barriers to this thing, which benevolence is like trust. It's built up by just giving first, I think. And so it's maybe a gentle ask at the most basic level. There's an interrogation of guesthood and hosting. What is good guesting? What is good hosting? And I think that our culture has that ingrained into it, those questions. And then there's also an immediate thing about time and generations. What is it that we stand to lose if we do not capture it while we can of the generations? Maybe not from my perspective looking up, but also maybe looking down, That feels urgent and immediate in a personal way, I think, to audiences, I hope. Yeah. And it may feel soft. It's a softer ask than like Chemical Valley Project is like, let's get activated and let's get on the streets for Indigenous sovereignty, right? That's the ask of that piece. This one is let's get activated in our own lives in a softer way, but my conviction as well, the little Trojan horse conviction is that the lineage of the work is the same as Chemical Valley Project. Yeah. Because what Jill said in terms of how can you meet us story to story if you don't know your own is exactly why I decided to do this piece. How are we supposed to be good guests on this land if we don't know our own stories? And for me, I thought, Hakkanis, we've had guesthood ingrained in our identity for hundreds of years. It was actually, I don't say this in the show, but it was a census that took place about 1,000 years ago. They didn't know what to do with us. We were just migrating people with nowhere to call one place home. And that's a derogatory thing 1,000 years ago, is calling somebody a guest. And so they just said, okay, all these people are just guest families. And that name is stuck for 1,000 years. And so I think that for Hakka folks, guesthood is something that we've been learning for 1,000 years. Maybe we're in guesthood 401 or our MA of guesthood, and maybe some of our audience members are feeling, okay, I'm in guesthood 101, and so my conviction is maybe there's something that's helpful in me sharing a Hakka version of guesthood here in the context of Canada. Yeah, anyway, I think this is my cue to go to. I thank you all so much for being here. I'll leave you with a very capable Jeff and Yizhou, but I thank you for being here. Also, I have a very terrifying moment at the beginning of the show, in which this is a bit of a spoiler. I may need some of your help, so if anybody feels particularly emboldened to help me, I welcome that. Okay, great.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Please join me in thanking Kevin.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here. I'll see you soon.
Have a good prep. Thank you so much for the talk. Let me just give a moment. Thank you. Welcome. I'm so excited for you to see it. And this moment that he speaks of at the very top, know that it follows the exact titling of the play. It's a very gentle, benevolent gesture, but does require some audience participation. So please do join us. But Yizhou, I wanted to ask you the same question around sort of what in this piece have spurred you on into the thought of direct action? What have you been inspired to take action on from working on this piece?
Please stop me if I spoil anything. I feel like I'm gonna go a bit deep. For me, I think that this piece transformed me a bit, and this transformation is epistemological. It's about how I understand the world and history. I think in this society, in Canada, the dominant framework of identity, how we understand who we are, is one that is based on ethnicity, language, and color. But I think in this show, Kevin offered us a different framework of understanding who we are and our relationship to other people. And this, I find this new framework, the framework of guesthood, of guest, to be, so that if we apply it to the historical framework or the political framework, I think it really transforms how we understand the history of Canada and our own histories, our own family histories of migration. And this transformation of our self-knowledge, I think, will spur action in a soft way, as Kevin had said, because guesthood is not an object. Like, guest is not an object. It is an action, a relationship, a performance. It's about what do you do to be a good guest? How do you be a guest? And that also implies that when you're a host, how do you be a good host? What do you do to be a good host? And so it's about action. Yeah, guesthood is an action. So I think that's what I got from the performance. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's absolutely true in that when you see the show today, I really hope and I'm excited for, oh my goodness, I'm really excited to talk to you after the show around your thoughts of guesthood and also Jill Carter's question of where do your stories intersect with Kevin's representation of his journey to finding his heritage or discovering parts of his heritage. He wrote in one of the sort of pre-show brochures that we had that he had a conviction that he shares a similar story with many people in this country. And so that's one that I'm really excited by, and looking around this room and knowing who our audiences are and considering where might you land in investigating your own relationship to this country and your own culture. I wanted to open it up now because of the timing of today. I wanted to open it up now to ask if you had any questions about benevolence. Yizhou will gladly share, and I can also answer on behalf of Tarragon. But if you have any questions or any thoughts. Yeah.
Sorry. First of all, with the description of different eyeglasses to see things, for most of the under 30s or even higher up, they should just take their eyes off their screens in their hand. Then they'd see a lot more. And as far as fiction and docufiction, Washington, D.C.
I know. So, yes, thank you. Yeah, definitely.
Yes. Absolutely. I'm sure that's a thought that is circling in our air right now as we think about the relationships we have to truth and to fiction. So thank you.
Fairy tales, even.
A great way to categorize it. Thank you. Yeah. Any questions? Any thoughts? Yeah.
What was the timeline between you and Kevin collaborating to today? Like the piece becoming final?
I think it's sorry, just COVID makes time just all jumbled up together. It's probably so the alumni showcase, which is the first like a digital performance, that is like only 20 minutes. That was probably 2021. Yes, 2021. And then I don't want to spoil things, but from that point, Kevin got opportunities to connect with people from his own community. And so as I said, that it's from that point on, the story becomes more concrete. Like, it starts from a very personal, spiritual, and symbolic, very abstract story. But with more people coming into the story, it becomes more communitarian. It has a social dimension now. So I think what we have, the final production, which you're going to see today, it's going to be a mixture of both the personal, spiritual, symbolic side, and also the community, the social side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that helps.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm thinking about scale in what you're saying, and I'm wondering if you could speak a bit about the movement between speaking about a peoples, talking about the Hakka people, and there being a single person on the stage, and the translation between a history that is held personally, and the truth and untruth, and the changing of that within an individual, and the scale of a community. You just spoke about other people coming in. Can you talk about that sort of a translation between the two?
I see. I'm not sure how to answer it in a satisfying way, because it is it's a very important question, but also a slippery question. But I would say that there is definitely a kind of a cosmic scale of things, like the 1,000 years of Hakka history, all the Hakka people, and then like even within Canada, like the Hakka diaspora, and then we have Kevin, one person. But I would say that this show I think it's very frank in the differences between these different levels of scales, and Kevin, his personal relationship to all those different levels of scales of knowledge or history, and I think in the end we do follow Kevin all the time, this one person. So all these things, the larger things, filter into something that is a human scale. So I think that's what happens in the production. Yeah.
I think that was a very satisfying answer. Thank you, Yizhou. And thank you for that great question. Thank you. Yes.
I just wanted to understand the role of a dramaturg.
Sure.
I've heard of it in musicals and
Yes,
stuff.
yes, yes.
So you're almost like a co-creator, or are you an interpreter, or collaborator? Like, how do you see that?
Thank you so much for this question. I got to justify my existence in theater. The Dramaturg is actually a theater profession that is born in Germany, and it hasn't really been popularized in North America as much. It's not as professionalized in America as much, in North America as much. So basically, so really much Kevin and I, we define what the role of the dramaturg is, what my role is in the production. Sometimes in Canada, the dramaturg role is just defined by the script. The dramaturg acts as a literary advisor, a literary editor. The dramaturg works with the playwright to edit the script, and that's it. But in this production, I would say my role as a dramaturg follows more of a European model, in which, yes, I edit the script, I'm a literary advisor, but I am also an advisor and a critique and a scholar in all aspects of the production and in all departments. Basically, like I just sit in the rehearsals and I just call out, that's off. Like we need to do that, and then just across the departments. So I would say that I think it really shows Kevin's patience and willingness to accept criticism. So that's what's been happening in this show, and I think dramaturgy is an important role, and I hope more theaters will have dramaturgs because the dramaturg is someone who is able to synthesize all the elements of the performance and look at it critically before it goes out to the audience. So yeah, thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Yes, we'll start here and then we'll move over here. Thank you.
I have a question which maybe you've already covered and I missed it.
Oh, that's okay.
The title
Yes.
of this, is there a connection between that and the Chinese Benevolent Societies in Canada?
Absolutely. In short, yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think just...
Did that start in China and was brought over here, or did they really start there?
I don't want to paraphrase too broadly, just because it's so specific to Kevin, the playwright. And I feel like much of what you asked just now is perfect. It's a perfect question to enter the performance with, because it's exactly the journey that Kevin goes through to investigate how he traces his Hakka heritage, from where, and the connection that it has with the benevolent associations. It's exactly the play. So it's a perfect question. Thank you. Yes.
Yes. So yeah, I wanted to revisit the topic of autofiction as
Sure.
we covered before. In your role as a dramaturg, did you face any challenges in taking Kevin's lived experience and the nuances of Hakka culture and translating it to make it more accessible for the audience, especially those who are not Hakka descent or even Chinese descent?
Yeah, I see. I have to confess that what you just described, these questions and worries, are mostly Kevin's. We kind of represent this tension. Like Kevin, it's more concerned, like I am, of making things accessible to the general audience. I don't. Maybe it's because coming from a perspective in academia, and also the fact that I'm still Chinese, and so I don't quite see what is the difficulty in this intercultural translation. My tendency is to keep the complexity, to keep the large things that is difficult to digest, difficult to understand. But I would say that my role as a dramaturg is to support the creator. So, and I think that if this spoils, we go back to that question about scale. I think what ended up happening in the production is that all these complexities and things, I think they are made quite accessible because Kevin is the filter, and so everything is kind of translated into something that is human scale. And the human in this human scale is a human that is in today's Canada. So I think that's, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Yes, in the back.
I wonder if you could tell us a bit more about your history as a dramaturg, other projects you've done?
Okay, I'm still very much new to both new to Canada and new to the theatre industry in Toronto. I would say that this is actually the first professional dramaturgy job I got to get to work in a actual theatre, like Tarragon Theatre. But otherwise, I work with this German, not German, she's Austrian-Canadian playwright, theatre director, and translator, and also dramaturg. Her name is Yeah, her name is Birgit. Sorry, I kind of blank out on her last name. But she used to be the dramaturg at Canadian Stage Theatre. And I worked as a dramaturg for her translations of contemporary German plays into English. And that usually happens, we would hold this kind of translation and reading workshop at the Goethe Institute in Toronto. So, yeah. Yeah. It's not very easy to find a job as a dramaturg in Toronto. So
when you grew up, you wanted to be a dramaturg?
I will see it as my duty to promote this role in Canada.
You were a nurse or a fire person. You didn't want a doctor. You wanted to be a dramaturg.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing that. Great. Any last questions? Otherwise, yes, thank
I'd
you.
be curious to know some more about, I mean, I know you're doing your whole PhD thesis on it, but the elements of materiality and embodiment. A little bit what your thoughts are about that and how you feel that's important for this work.
Thank you. I think in terms of, I would, so in terms of materiality, the set design and the prop design of this production will actually draw out of my research on Hakka materiality. And that's actually, now that hearing Kevin's story, I realized that he requested me to do that research on Hakka materiality, and I realized that that's probably based on his interest in museums. So, and in that research, I basically look at objects that everyday objects, food, clothes, like tools of labor, tools of transportation, etc. Like that's the Hakka materiality, and this research of Hakka materiality kind of inspired the set design. And in terms of embodiment, so I find this interesting is that there are moments, like drama is kind of an art form that is the emphasis on speech, on dialogue between characters. But here I would say that embodiment and movement has a very important place in the show. And when I think of it, I think of this, what we call the art of living blank in Chinese painting. So in Chinese painting, like, let's say this paper, not exactly canvas, but it's paper. Well, in Western oil painting, like everything, its paint will cover the entire canvas. But in Chinese painting, perhaps the drawing will be very small, and it will be in the margins or in the corner of the entire paper, and the rest of paper is just left blank. So that's the art of leaving blank, to leave room. But what is this room for? Is this room for breathing, for coexistence, for generating new thoughts or ideas? And anyhow, it is an empty room. And so I think of these moments of embodiments in this production to be these living blank, like these blank spaces. And I look forward to knowing your experiences in these kind of blank spaces in the production.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful articulation. Thank you so much. Yes.
As a very old person, and Canada had completely different demographics when I was born in the Great Depression in the 30s. And all the changes and the people coming from all over. Things like this are really helpful for old guys like me to learn, because we're not on the internet all the time, we're not intermingling with such a huge circle of different people. So this is very helpful to learn and understand, and in many cases probably finding similarities. So thank you.
That's exactly it. And to use the image that we chatted about just recently, it's getting a new pair of glasses to look at your own histories and relationships.
Turn your damn toy off.
Absolutely. I think that is the perfect. Oh, there's one more question. Thank you, Heather. Yes.
So thank you so much for having us here. I think, as you said about reimagining the framework, I feel like nowadays, with the news and everything, I feel like we might all have moments where we feel trapped in how the society views us, or how we think the society is viewing us. So I think I personally appreciate every attempt to interpret that and to find who we are, who I am. That experience, I feel like, is very liberating. So I really look forward to the play. And my question is, how did you, or did you feel like you grow or encounter something new as you work through this project?
I see. Oh, no, thank you. First of all, thank you for that, your personal response. Like, I feel exactly the same. My personal growth, I mean, I talk about the epistemologic, the transformation of knowledge that I experience in this show. But I mean, on a more personal and more, like, to put it in more specific words, it's me learning to empathize with second-generation immigrants. I think this is getting a bit sensitive, but I mean, like, I think we've seen, like, maybe from an outside eye, me and Kevin, we're all Chinese, like Chinese immigrant or Chinese Canadian, whatever. But we've seen this community, like the large framework of like people of Chinese heritage, of Chinese ethnicity in Canada. The people are divided, further divided by, for example, our dialects, the specific locations we come from. Like, he's from Hong Kong, I'm from Northern China. And the timing of our immigration. There's the first generation, the second generation, people who are still seeking that PR and citizenship, people who no longer speak Chinese, who no longer identify themselves as Chinese, Canadian, etc. So there's so many layers of differences. And so in this show, I think for me, it's a show of not erasing our differences, but really seeking and actually finding that sameness and uniting in that sameness. That's what I felt. So I really got to empathize with Kevin's story in the end. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think that's a perfect sort of ending in terms of, here's a Sunday, we're in a room together at the theater, and thank you so much for joining us. May you take Benevolence with you, both in the watching of it, but in your hearts and in your daily actions as you go about your day. Please join me in thanking Yizhou.
Thank you.
Enjoy your Sundays and enjoy this show. Thank you so much.